Go on to our last speaker, Dr. Ramurthy, who's going to dwell on treatment of higher grades of hyperopia, choosing between laser vision correction and clear lens extraction with multifocal IOLs.
Thank you so much, Chitra and Team ARC. I think the classification of hyperopia is as low, less than 2 diopters, medium 2 to 4 diopters, high beyond 4 diopters. This is, and I believe that laser vision correction for high hyperopia is not even a consideration. Today, I won't do for high hyperopia beyond 2.5 diopters laser vision correction, because when you do it in higher grades, then you can get undercorrection, regression of whatever effect you get, poor quality of vision because the hyperprolate cornea that you leave behind. Because the nipple-like effect, the ocular surface issues with these cases is much more pronounced than even with myopia. Basically, as far as I'm concerned, as by treating high hyperopia, less than 45 years of age, if the lens is pristine, then it will be phakic intraocular lenses. If it's beyond 45 years and the patient is keen on a lens base on getting rid of the refractive error, it would be more cataract lens extraction with multifocal intraocular lens. Again, of course, if the AC depth is less than 2.8 millimeters, lens-based surgery might be a better way to go. The reasons we have, there is renewed interest and greater interest in laser vision lens extraction for hyperopia, higher grades of hyperopia, is because of our ability to accurate biometry, even these extremes of refractive error, excellent post-surgical visual outcomes that we are able to achieve with current technologies, availability of premium intraocular lenses, the torics, the trifocal torics, etc. And many people well beyond their 40s leading a very active lifestyle and wanting to get rid of their glasses. And other side effects of removing the lens is that the shallowing of the AC, which is often concomitant with these cases, is something done away with. Unlike in higher grades of myopic errors, the increased risk of retinal detachment, CME, CNVM, etc. are not there in these cases, high hyperopia. And minimal induction of HOA, unlike in laser vision correction, which would happen if we were to correct high grades of hyperopia on the cornea. The only consideration would be that high hyperopia sometimes is associated with choroidal effusion. This has also been titrated with the sclerochoroidal complex thickness, but with the controlled phacoemulsification, this is less of a problem. We must understand that even though the lens might be clear, the lens of a 25-year-old is not exactly the same as that of a 55-year-old. And with aging, even if the lens is clear, there's an increase in spherical aberration, light scattering, refractive index. There's a decrease in transparency and accommodation, because of which it's a dysfunctional lens. And there is an index which is being talked about. I'm not going to go into details. Anything less than 5 is considered to be a dysfunctional lens. And especially if it's associated with high grades of hyperopic refractive error, the patient might benefit from exchanging these lenses. Just a couple of videos. One is a refractive lens exchange with the EDOF, another is a refractive lens exchange with a trifocal. Basically, you would observe all the precautions that you would for a clear lens extraction. The basic challenge is in accurate biometry. As far as you're able to get those numbers right, often you end up with good refractive outcome. In some cases of extreme refractive errors, this was a case which had an error of 49 diopters, implanted a plus 40 diopters, residual as plus 6, and this was a planned Sulcoflex lens which was implanted a month later. And you can see the simple calculation is for every diopter of correction of hyperopia, you require 1.5 diopters. So basically what went in this case is a plus 9 diopters, bilaterally implanted. This patient, even with extreme hyperopia, ended up with almost an emmetropic outcome. Again, you have this option of secondary trifocal implantation also. There are patients who have already had a monofocal implant done, and today we have the choice of implanting a Sulcoflex lens or a piggyback lens. There are reasonably good lenses that are available even in the Indian market, making it affordable and ability to rehabilitate these patients as far as the requirement of the near vision is concerned. And as regards our study, I still have a minute. So as regards our study in the year 2019, we did 28 days of clear lens extraction. 14 of them, obviously all these cases are done bilaterally, and the mean age was 51. The age range was between 42 to 61. As far as the majority of these patients are hyperopic patients, 13 of them, just one patient was a myope. The multifocal intraocular lenses we used in 24 of these eyes. 4 were just multifocals, EDOF in 8. And the later part of our studies, it was mostly trifocal because that's what we're shifting to. Trifocal toric in 2 eyes. And you can see the significant, excellent refractive outcome majority of these patients had. So the disadvantages of this particular surgery is the complication that was always goes in hand with any invasive surgery. The chances of posterior capsular opacification, endophthalmodonosis, and CME and retinal detachment, though in hyperopic cases, that's extremely small. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
I'll see if we can take 2 questions. Anagha or Satyajit could also add, would you think of combining cross-linking when you're doing a hyperopic LASIK? Moderate grades of hyperopic LASIK. Would you all want to consider cross-linking? Because I was to cover that in the regression talk, but it's not done. So, Anagha, are you there? Dr. Satyajit? Okay, right. Dr. Gaurav, Anagha, you're there. Would you think of combining with cross-linking when you're doing moderate hyperopic laser vision correction?
No, not at the same sitting, ma'am.
You do not believe that combining it with laser vision correction with CXL will do good for a regression in a hyperopic LASIK? Don't believe that.
No, not at the same sitting. Maybe at another next sitting. In the next sitting.
How would that?
How would that?
So, ma'am, actually, I think Kanalopoulos is the one who has done the maximum work on this and published about it, and he strongly believes that this works well. But nobody else has been able to really reproduce. I don't know if anybody else has published on this or is strongly proper, is a proponent. I think you will be best to talk on this, and maybe Dr. Fogla has experience on this.
Yes, Dr. Fogla?
I agree with Dr. Ramamurthy. I don't believe in LASIK for hyperopia.
Yes.
Unless up to 2 diopters, maybe I would do. Anything beyond that, it doesn't work. And especially with a lot of regression and patients are not happy. And also, you would find that a lot of these patients already have a steep K of around 45, 46. And if you do a hyperopic treatment, you are basically taking the corneal curvature beyond the physiological limits, and which does have an impact. And so maybe a lens-based approach would be, especially in presbyopic patients, definitely a lens-based approach is good. Having said that, but in children, if you see, 10, 12-year-old children who have +5, +6, so there sometimes we do a hyperopic LASIK, but not from the point of, because from the point of amblyopia management, you can definitely think about doing as a therapeutic treatment, you can perform hyperopic laser procedures.
Even in these situations, I think if there's adequate AC depth, I would consider it a phakic IOL.
Yeah, but any thoughts on cross-linking with hyperopic LASIK?
We want to hear your thoughts, ma'am.
No, I'll go on to the next question. I don't think it can be ruled out at all if the anterior chamber depth is less and the hyperopia is just about 3 diopters, and you don't want to do a clear lens exchange in this patient. I think there is no harm in doing combining with CXL. Although we prefer to do a CXL with a PRK largely because that only makes sense. But definitely, I'm not convinced that CXL has no role at all in regression. There are enough number of studies which say that it could be considered. It has been keeping the eye stable anyway. There is one.
Right, Dr. Chitra, it's already 5:25. We might get logged out at any time. So
yeah, we are ready
just
for
to
that. Yeah, beyond thank you, we are talking.
Waiting for the hacks to fall.
Yeah, if you have a thick epithelium, say 70 micron of epithelium, a person has, you are planning an enhancement in these eyes. So what would you do for these patients? Would you do a flap lift? The patient is actually come for enhancement after 5 years. Would you go ahead and do a PRK for these patients?
Looks like only Dr. Chitra got logged out.
Only Dr. Chitra got logged out. We all are still here. I think Dr. Ramamurthy should continue the thing till we all get kicked out.
We can talk about other things here. Anyway, I think if it is 70 micron, as she mentioned, the first thing I'll do is to just debride the epithelium and see what impact it has on the refractive outcome. before doing
Definitely
it.
no trans-PRK, because that will cause irregular ablation of the epithelium, and so trans-PRK is definitely. But alcohol or like brush or something, I would still go ahead and do a surface thing. I don't know what others would think.
Especially treating very low myopia, it's always better to debride epithelium and do a PRK, especially if you don't have the epithelial maps. Because I've had a situation where I treated minus 0.75 and the patient didn't have any effect at all. And that was because the patient's epithelium was about 65 microns. So whatever I have updated, it was all intraepithelial as well. So when the patient came back, we did a manual debridement of the epithelium and then performed the PRK, and then then the effect was seen. So I think, especially for enhancement, also if you're doing epithelial mapping, becomes very important.
If it's an extremely thick epithelium like this, sometimes it's worthwhile just debriding the epithelium and looking at the refractive outcome in a couple of months. And of course,
Sorry to come in between.